Sometimes we get asked this question, like, couldn't I just go on Aave or, some DeFi protocol, or couldn't I go to the bank and borrow dollars against the Bitcoin? But fundamentally, then you're dealing with a currency mismatch, and you're dealing with like the potential month over month volatility of Bitcoin, or having a margin call or whatever. In our case, you make the loan and like it's all in Bitcoin terms, so it's in that way a lot safer and more secure, and you're getting the tax benefit.
So when you say it's in Bitcoin terms, does that mean like when I come and make a loan or request a loan, it would be like, hey, I need 2 Bitcoin,
correct,
versus I need $200,000,
correct.
But then that would also mean I have to pay it back in Bitcoin.
Again, but because you have this death benefit coming in Bitcoin terms, it's not like you're not really short Bitcoin because you're
right.
You're long Bitcoin on the death benefit.
Yeah. Debt works really well in an inflationary economy. Debt doesn't work. Debt works against you in a deflationary economy. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then I think another strategy that people would typically employ on like a whole life policy would be like spending down the death benefit, which I think is basically what you're saying.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
It's kind of the same thing, right? And then when you die, in this example as you proposed, right? So then my kids get the 8 Bitcoin, for example, or the 15, whatever. Is that tax free?
Yeah, it is income tax free. The way
not capital gains.
It's capital gains and income tax free.
Right.
Whether it's estate tax free is a life structuring question. So
estate taxes.
Yes, estate taxes. So that the way that works is,
if you have a trust,
it's
irrevocable.
You have the irrevocable trust by the policy,
right?
Which we have, users do that. So that the way you get an insurance policy outside of your estate is the same way you get like any asset outside of your estate. And we have policyholders with a range of sophistication and different structures. So that the estate tax is the only one that like you need like an extra layer of planning around.
And that's where you need to learn how to use the tool properly.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It's a tool, but some people know how to use the tool.
And these things are actually somewhat in conflict that we've been talking about. Like, if what you care about is like spending down the policy before you die, you actually want to be the owner because you're the one who borrows against the policy. But if you're primarily using it as a tool to pass on Bitcoin to, more Bitcoin to your children, then yes, you put it inside a trust.
It gets complex because my trust could borrow the money and then it could loan me the money.
Correct, and
so
then
we can do layers and
your wife's a beneficiary.
Yeah.
So consult your attorney.
Well, and it needs to be done on an individual basis.
Correct.
So this is something that does require. I advocate for using tax strategists and tax attorneys and then estate planners and attorneys and all those things. I mean, obviously depends on the size of your state. The more intricate you'd have to be.
But it's exactly what you said. Like, I guess just to pause and say, to go back to the financial inclusion story for a second, like our ultimate vision, right, is if you're a middle-class person in Argentina, you do not buy life insurance because you are going to live longer than the Argentinian peso.
But most likely,
right? Like just historically, there have been many versions of the Argentinian peso over the last.
We might live longer than the U.S. dollar.
You might live longer than the U.S. dollar, right? So that's a like core fundamental beginning for us. Is most importantly, like this is a tool in like the true global store of value, and like that is why we created the company.
Yeah.
Now, it is also the case that every country in the world basically that has taxes has tax benefits and tax privileges for life insurance, for annuities, for various long-term insurance products. And that's what we've gotten into this conversation about. So if you're an American, we've designed the product specifically to comply with the tax rules so you can get those benefits. But it is like all of these things at once.
Yeah. So you mentioned Argentina. So is it available in Argentina or is it only America?
Not yet available in Argentina, but that is an aspiration.
Yeah. So a couple things that I think about. So number one, like when I think about using these whole life insurance companies, I think about, will they be there in 50 years to pay that claim once I'm dead? can they guarantee that 5% over a long period of time? Some of these companies have been around for 100 years or longer.
Hundreds of years, yeah.
Hundreds of years. But then I also still worry that, man, we had a decade of zero interest rate policies, and how far out on the risk curve do they have to go? And now with the COVID that we went through, they're probably way offsides on their actuaries, and there could be a lot of potential risk there. So I think about that, as we should, right? Try to mitigate that risk. From a Bitcoin standpoint, it gets even more risky potentially, I would think. So number one, most people just right off the bat, they've been burned by the Celsius and the BlockFis and et cetera. And so, not your keys, not your coin. If I give it to you, I may not get it back, the counterparty risk that's involved, and then how much risk there is. So I'm curious how you think about mitigating those risks, right?
I'm glad you used the word mitigate, because in some ways that's all we can do is we can build these things, we can tell our story, people come to trust us. We're very fortunate that a lot of policyholders have come to trust us. But there's no perfect answer, right? So you mentioned a lot of things, but let me start by saying, we are a regulated and licensed life insurance company in Bermuda, not the Bahamas. Bermuda is a legit place where many life insurance and P&C insurance companies are domiciled. They are quite difficult in the good way. They provide a lot of oversight. They're really the only offshore jurisdiction that's respected both by the American regulatory bodies and the European regulatory bodies. There's all this equivalence and stuff. But what that means
So why would you go there as opposed to Bahamas, since it's so much more difficult?
Because it's so much more difficult.
So you could have more trust and transparency.
Yeah. We could have set this company, it took us almost 2 years to launch. We had to write a giant business plan. We had to get an internal auditor, an external auditor, an approved actuary, an insurance manager. We had to convince all these people, none of whom who've ever thought about crypto and insurance before. We have a chief risk officer, a chief compliance officer, 17 corporate policies, 850 corporate controls. We could have set this company up in Cayman or the Bahamas or British Virgin Islands a lot faster, but being in a jurisdiction that people know is trustworthy is super important. But critically, they're trustworthy, they're difficult, they're challenging, they provide a lot of oversight. And this is also where Coinbase's offshore operations are. They're also very innovative. They want things to happen on the island. And in that way, we were able to have a dialogue.
I think they're the first country with the CBDC.
Yeah.
They are very Was it Bahamas, I think?
No, we're in Bermuda.
Bermuda,
I don't think they have a CBDC. They have a...
What do they call the shell CBDC?
There's a very interesting history on the monetary policies of Bermuda that I won't get into here. Anyway, do we want
it was Bahamas.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was Bahamas.
I'm against it. So one is that there is a lot of oversight and we're not like BlockFi, who was essentially acting like a bank in this unregulated fashion. We started by saying we need to be regulated and licensed. And what that ends up meaning in practice is that, as I said, we're in the process right now of getting an external audit. Something that many people in crypto have never had, right? We have to post a bunch of capital, right? That's how insurance companies work. So we as a company have a bunch of our own Bitcoin in the company, and then users, pay us premiums, and then we invest that corpus. But our capital is first loss capital, right? If we made some mistakes, the Bermuda Monetary Authority would shut us down, and we would have to give everyone their money back, right? And we would be the ones who lost our Bitcoin first, right? So the way we gain trust is sort of walking people through. You mentioned how it can be a complicated thing to think about. Every single policyholder we have, every single person who comes to our website and signs up, me or my colleague Danny get on the phone and we talk to them. And we talk them through the enterprise risk management framework. And we talk them through, this is exactly why, to go back, we promised 2% returns. Because, is there a chance we could be wrong way on that? There is. But we definitely don't think there are 7% risk-adjusted returns to be made in Bitcoin. That's not where we want to be on the risk curve. So we deliberately made it a number that we thought we could achieve. And every single thing we do is in that conservative nature. Like the product is priced conservatively. To be honest, we reject a ton of people because every single person we take on, that's a liability, right? So we do underwriting, we make sure you're healthy, but that not only is about that person, it's about protecting the entire company.
Right.
We have a credit committee.
If your upside's on that risk,
correct.
That's how insurance companies go down.
Yeah. And then on the asset management side, look, we have something that no one else has in Bitcoin, which is we have duration, right? Like users are trusting us with their Bitcoin for decades. And so we trade duration to counterparties, but what we want is credit protection. And we're really conservative. Like we're not YOLOing to Voyager or Three Arrows. Like respectable name brand institutional counterparties, we demand a lot of collateral or security, seniority, and we're like running a private credit desk in Bitcoin. And we walk people through that all. And I think we're fortunate that has given a lot of people an insurance. But the tax benefits are good too, right?